This one's for this one here.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the March 11th, 2026 Ashland Parks and Rec Commission business meeting. We had scheduled but canceled an executive session related to real property transactions. There was no meeting. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Lund,
Present.
Commissioner Weiner,
Here.
Commissioner Bachman,
Here.
Commissioner Adams,
Here.
and Commissioner Gardner.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have two sets of minutes for approval this evening. One is the Park Commission study session of February 4th, 2026. The other is a joint meeting we had with the City Council. It's called a business meeting, but we don't do any action on February 11th of 2026. I'm looking for additions or changes. Without that, I'll ask for unanimous consent. Hearing no objection, minutes approved by unanimous consent. There are no additions or deletions to the agenda. I have one person who would like to speak at public forum. That's Sharon Bryson, and I believe it's all set up, and everybody tonight will have 3 minutes to speak. Welcome, and just tell us again for the record who you are and where you live.
My name is Sharon Bryson. I live here in Ashland. My talk is very, very short. I got some communication that a line of communication may be open soon with one of the persons on the commission, and I really appreciate that. But what I want to do is start the dialogue with the public about the integrated pest management policy that belongs to the commission. I have a copy of the policy that was developed by some very, very hardworking citizens in 2010. This policy has many revisions up through 2014. This is as far as any of us detectives could find. And then I got some help from another person sitting up on that panel, and I got another one that is dated, the update is June 13th, 2024. The revision in 2024 states, the commission modified the APRC IPM policy to apply only to city council designated parklands, in parentheses, parks, trails, and open space. I'm sorry, but I don't know what that means. That's one point. The next point is, as we move forward and communicate on this important issue of glyphosate, I certainly hope that we can have public access to information such as this. I can find the City of Talent's IPM. I can go up and down the interstate in minutes and find an IPM for a community. Please, we need to know about this. We need to know when there's a revision. In the IPM, it requires an annual report that should be available to public. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item is the consent agenda. We have no items, and so we're to 7, which is the business. Tonight is all information. So we will not be taking any further action this evening. And the first item is Recreation Division Annual Report, which will be presented by Lonnie. Lonnie Flora, Recreation Supervisor. I wanted to get the title right. Thank you, Mr. Flora.
All right, thank you. So just stated? Okay. So tonight I'm just providing a broad overview of our 2025 calendar year of recreation. It will be 5 specific areas: programming, events, some of our visitor services and facilities, and marketing, some of the things that we've done in marketing, and also the partnerships that we manage. So first, looking at programming, for the 2025 calendar year, we had 2,008 activity registrations. Activities are pre-registered scheduled activities, usually consists of one time or a group of classes, a number of dates to cover a defined curriculum. And we had a total of 127 of these activities. This also does include swimming and skating lessons where people sign up in advance and then come and take their classes. Moving on to events that we did over 2025, a number of these events were put on working closely with partners in the community. So as you can see, probably some of the biggest success that we had this summer in Lithia Park with the summer concert series, both between the Folk Collective and Epic Ashland. The park saw anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 attendees over a course of 7 concerts. In other events, the Nature Center hosted Bird Day, a Salmon Field Day, Arbor Day, and a bike swap. Estimated around 800 attendees for those events. The Japanese Garden also hosted a number of events with about 2,500 estimated attendees, and the all-in adapted events, which occurred at both the swimming pool and the ice rink. These are inclusive events designed for families with people experiencing disabilities. However, these events are open to everyone, and they are sponsored by our partners. The visitor services, which would include facility rentals and privately organized activities and events, we had about 8,000 plus hours of private and public space reservations. This includes the Grove, also ball fields at North Mountain Park and Hunter Park, outdoor picnic areas and pavilions, the fire pit, then also special event permits, and the Davis Chair program. Also, Coordinator Kirsten Kame has done work setting up some new trail programs, including the Lithia Park Track Trails program with a partnering organization. She had worked on the Briscoe Geology Park Trail and some interpretation that goes along with that. And of course, hosting the Lithia Park walks through our volunteer program and the Youth Conservation Corps, which I believe has 24 total youth that go out and work out in the park system. Some other facility use that we have is off-season use of the pool. So we do still work with the Rogue Valley Masters, the high school swim teams, and the water polo teams to use the pool and keep up their skills there. Moving on to our marketing efforts in 2025, as many of you know, we started the process of transitioning from a print and direct mail of our community play guide to a digital-only format. We started this transition almost a year ago and begun a e-newsletter. So we implemented that to over 5,000 contacts of April of last year. The newsletter went out again ahead of the fall program, and that number of contacts grew to over 6,000. Another thing that we did in marketing to kind of alert people to the transition to the digital-only format was sending out a postcard. So we did print a small postcard and direct mail that to all households, alerting people where they can find their information on all of our programs and events. There was also a lot of work done, and kudos to Amber Schroy, our administrative assistant, who really helped increase our social media presence and getting all of the information out on Instagram and Facebook, letting everyone know all the different things that were going on, including park updates, restroom closures, things of that nature. And then another real key ingredient to our marketing is our partnerships that we manage. So while we don't have a printed play guide, we do still show up in publications and print publications through various partnerships, including Ollie at SOU, where we have an ad in their program. Also with Southern Oregon Family, Sneak Preview, and a handful of other publications that include our display ads. And finally, partnerships. This is an area, and this isn't a exhaustive list or a comprehensive list of all the partnerships that we work on. But partnerships are really key to providing recreation services. So without our partners, the events that we host in parks, programs, including rec tennis through the UST, TA, Pacific Northwest, and the Tennis and Fitness Club, Bridging Communities and the Southern Oregon Autism Society host our adapted programs, again, for those families experiencing disabilities. Of course, Epic Ashland and the Folk Collective, the Pedal Power program with partnerships with Devo, and the Climate Collaborative to keep kids educated on riding bikes safely in our communities. So, yeah, partnerships are really key to what we do. So, with that said, that is kind of the broad overview for 2025 in the Recreation Division, and can field any questions.
If I can just add that in your packet, there is a exhaustive list, a report of the Recreation Division that includes more than what was presented tonight. So feel free to ask any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Supervisor? Commissioner Adams.
Thank you, Chair. I have a brief comment followed by a question. Obviously some big successes here. In particular, I would underline the concerts in the park as a relatively new thing with huge attendance, and always see park staff there after hours supporting that. That doesn't happen without the work of our staff. I would also just underline, and this isn't for the purpose of pointing fingers, this is like recognition to me as a department, of which I'm a public representative, of a couple failures this last year. The failure to open the ice rink was really significant to our community, and of course I look forward to the update tonight on next year's ice rink, and I know that staff is working really hard on that. I think reduced hours in the pool and the splash pad were another thing that we heard a lot of feedback from on the community, and I hope we'll be thinking about that really hard as we come into the next summer. I know those are things, of course, that are loved by your department, Lonnie. And so I hope we're just thinking about those things and feel the need to say it out loud, not because, again, that I want to say anything negative to anybody here, but kind of let the public know that we're hearing them. We read those emails. We really do. My question for you, Lonnie, is about the switch to digital to announce what we're doing. I get my guide, and of course I love what the department does, so I read every page. I'm curious to hear from you, from Rachel, from anybody else. What's your opinion of that transition? Do you feel like this new format is adequate? Are we getting the word out about the programs that we're doing, so we know the community is receiving that? I hear 5,000 emails sent, and I go, well, we got 25,000 residents, so we used to send a guide to every single household in Ashland. Are we doing enough to make sure that people know what's happening in the parks. I'm curious to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, thank you. Good question. And we, as a recreation division, the whole team that works on marketing, we are working on tracking the results of, into this year and what 2026 brings us. So short answer would be, currently I have not seen much change in programming, in registrations. But of course, the guide is more than just a list of programs. It's everything that we do, or at least tries to be. So we're using some of the metrics, through the email and being able to track click-throughs, be able to kind of use heat maps on our website to see where people are clicking, if they're going to, these different areas. So hopefully, early 2027, we'll have a good understanding of what the comparisons are for that.
I would just add that, by mailing out the postcard, we were trying to remind people to go to the website. And, this time around, coming up for summer, we're going to be taking out a full page ad in the sneak preview to try to remind people to go to the website. It's going to have like a showing of all of our kind of summer programs related to youth and family. So we're finding other ways, and because our resources are limited and we just don't have the marketing budget that we used to have, and it's just we're trying to make sure that we can preserve staff and programs. So that's why that change was made.
Great, thanks to you both.
Have you had any anecdotal pro offerings from citizens saying that they miss the old printed and they're having difficulty figuring out what's going on?
I think that a lot of any concerns that we've received have come mostly through the senior program and senior services. And our staff, both at the Grove and at the senior center, work hard to help assist people in person to register, and also over the phone to register as needed. So yes, we are hearing that people miss it. And then again, it's like, yeah. So yes, we are hearing that.
Okay, and any, in terms of the new system in general, not the way we're advertising, but the system itself, are people getting familiar with it and are able to negotiate it?
Are you speaking
The
of
online system for signing
the
up.
registration?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still some struggles, but I don't know if you want to comment on the registration system at all.
Well, again, this year I have seen in our programs more kind of self-serve registrations, people going online. So I feel like people are learning, getting a hold of, the system. We've also put work into helping guide people through that process, and still looking at ways to kind of improve the website to alert people, like, here's where you want to click for certain things. So, yeah, we're continuing to
And then
try
for
to
this,
improve.
I'm repeating some things here intentionally. So for the senior, they can get help at the senior center or at the Grove, but the senior center is a great place for them to start if they're having difficulty.
Correct,
Okay,
either
okay.
location, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions or
Yeah,
comments?
right here.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Chair. 2 questions. So can you remind me of what the cost savings was by going digital versus printed?
About $20,000.
So 20,000 a year? Mm-hmm. And then earlier, when we discussed going to digital, at least I remember, I asked, is there any way we're going to try to track that to make sure that what we're just talking about here, that people are able to get in and that use of our services doesn't fall off? So is there a plan to track that?
I think Lonnie did answer that question. We're doing it through through our digital marketing and click-throughs and people clicking on the website. We're tracking it through the Google Analytics. We could consider doing a survey down the road to see, what's working, what's not. But yeah, we are tracking it right now.
I guess I would also add that just the hard numbers of registrations that have occurred from 2025 to 2026 at this point in the year compared to last year, I think we're still actually we've seen more registrations for those regular programs. I can't speak for senior services and their numbers, but from the outside and looking in our system, it appears that they're doing pretty well as well.
So that would be our metrics, is if use of programs is up, then it's not having an effect.
It would be one metric to use with everything else that we can track
Yeah.
from the analytics and click-throughs and all the crazy, electronic stuff that people can track.
Okay. One more question. So what about so the nature center's kind of been hibernating for the last couple of years. That's within recreation, right? So what are the plans for 2026 with with the nature center? I mean?
So right now, we have 2 staff at the Nature Center, our volunteer and event coordinator, and Kirsten Kame, our environmental ed coordinator. And between those 2, the facility itself is open 2 days a week. The front office is run by volunteers on those 2 days. But behind the scenes, Kirsten, the coordinator there, is overseeing all 4 of the community gardens that are out at the 4 different parks, as well as running programs. So we do have active volunteer groups that are not only on site doing volunteer programs, but also programming things at the Nature Center. We have a current partnership with Creekside Strings that's doing a program at the Nature Center. So we are opening our doors and doing nature education, nature environmental education programming as we can. We also are working on some more partnerships. We have one right now that we're dialing in with the YMCA to do some environmental education programs with the schools on site. And our staff would kind of just be there to assist, but YMCA would be running the program. So, I think we've talked about today, it's like partnerships are key to us being able to offer recreation programs moving forward. So a lot is happening at the Nature Center, so.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Salmon Festival coming?
It's called Salmon Field Day now.
Oh, okay.
And yes, and that program is a partnership now with Salmon Watch, and they actually run the Salmon Field Day, and our staff helps host and assists on that day.
Great, thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much for your
All right,
presentation.
thank you.
Item 2 is Q1, Q2 fiscal year 26 financial update, and then we'll hear that from Administrative Coordinator Brandon Terry. Don't forget to turn your mic on.
Hi, Brandon Terry, Administrative Coordinator. Good evening. I'm going to just run through some quick slides, catching up on the Q1 and Q2 quarters for FY 2026. So our first image here is the personnel. So in Q1, we executed about 22%. In Q2, just under 20%. And we have a balance of about 2.8 million or 58%. So Q1 and Q2 would make up half the year. So we're a little less than we have more money than we have more money for personnel than we're looking good on personnel. Let me say that. And the same is pretty much true for our material and services lines. And then we have a little bit of capital outlay that we use for equipment. Q1, we executed about 25.5%, Q2, 22.5%, and 52% is left over. So I think that looks really good for where we were when Q2 ended in December. So this is the revenue that we've done for Q1 and Q2 of FY24, 25, and 26. FY26 is the green. You'll see that pretty much the same in July, really good in August, really good in September, still good in October, flattens out with all the other ones in November, and then is significantly lower than 24 and 25. That's due to the ice rink. But overall, when we ended Q1, we were about 58,000 more than we were in FY25. And then at the end of Q2, we're still about 11,000 more than we were this time last year. So even without the ice rink, we're still above where we were last year and the year before, FY24. So that'll probably change next month or in January when we still would be bringing in some ice rink revenue, but I'll report on that in Q3. So, but overall, I think it's really good, and it's the lion's share is the golf is about 53,000 more than it was this time last year, or end of Q2 this time last year. And pool program brought in more than last year. Senior services, like 30% more than this time last year. So all of our programs are really doing well. So a lot to be happy about there. And then this is our CIP, our food and beverage information. And we started the biennium with 3.3 million. And through the course of the 6 months between food and beverage tax, interest, smallish grant reimbursement, and then our transfer from CIP to our general fund, which is 422,000. That's the drop that you see here from November to December. And then we had some contract execution in that time as well. So pretty flat for the first 6 months. Obviously, that'll change as East Main and Hunter Tennis Court pick up.
Mr. Lunt?
Thank you. I'm assuming that the drop-off that shows at the end happens every year. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Adams?
I think I heard you say that golf was a big part of why we saw last fall look so good. Mm-hmm. Do we have any sense with unfortunate events at the driving range what we're looking at since all those poles went down and really badly damaged the driving range? So I can only speak to what I know and maybe a conversation I've had with Manager Caldwell, but I don't see that breakup, so I don't know what part it makes up what, like golf rental fees or the pro shop, but having a conversation with Kevin Caldwell, I got the impression that it wouldn't have a large impact. Oh, good.
In revenue, but I don't want to speak for him, and but I think from the last presentation that was done on golf, I don't think that it's significant as compared to the main golf play that's done.
That's good news, and of course we all still care about getting
Yeah,
the
and
range back online,
that
regardless
stuff
of
is
the
in the
revenues.
works for sure to get it back up.
follow-up comment? Sure. You know, I always appreciate these financial presentations because it's important that we have good financial stewardship, and it's always sort of an interesting thing. You know, when news is good from a financial perspective, sometimes it's not good from a community service perspective, right? When we come out ahead from a personnel perspective, it usually means that we have unfilled positions of people that would otherwise be doing work for the community. And I don't doubt, though, we looked at it on the revenue side and it looked bad that the ice rink was closed. Like most programs we do, the ice rink doesn't actually make a profit. And so no doubt we came out ahead by the ice rink, financially by the ice rink
Yeah.
not being open. And of course, it's not the kind of ahead that we want to be. So just thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I'll just make a general comment, which is we like to see our budget get spent. So when we're behind spending, there's, you know, a reason that sometimes we want to try to fix. We try to budget what we need and then we want to spend that. And sometimes we have hurdles to overcome to do that. And we understand that.
I agree. And just to add to that, while we are behind in payroll and when somebody leaves or it takes a while to hire somebody, it really is, in terms of payroll dollars, it's really hard to catch up and spend that. You know, we can do it with temps when we need them, but what I like about the way it's done here in Ashland is that we can tap into that payroll dollars for M&S needs. So we do hope to execute and, you know, get what we need to do the job. And I agree that I would much rather have the personnel spent on personnel, but we have flexibility and we do hope to get the city everything it needs to operate.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thanks for your presentation.
Thank you.
Third item is Ashland Parks Foundation, board member Mark Knox is here. And he would like to speak to us about a fundraising proposal for a new ice rink amenities.
No, you can sit.
And it looks like Acting Director Dials is going to join him.
So, yeah, I'm gonna start really quick with the update on the ice rink. The current ice rink.
I'm sorry, I skipped
Yeah,
ahead.
that's okay.
Perfect.
We can cozy up here. It's good. So just a quick update on the ice rink canopy permitting. Everything has been submitted to the planning department within the last day. And so basically the parking lot is going to open this Friday while we get the parts ordered for the cabling to make it a year-round structure. Once we get those cabling parts in, we'll probably have to close the parking lot for up to 1 to 2 weeks, depending on how long install takes. But bottom line is, everything's moving forward. We're checking things off the list, and the permitting will be completed very soon for a year-round structure.
So we will have a normal ice rink
We will
season
have a
next year
normal
with
ice
this
rink.
canopy
Correct.
and our new chiller.
Correct.
Excellent. Commissioner Long.
I may not have heard you correct. This parking, the structure is going to be underneath will be open to parking before the permitting's done?
So we are getting, the fire marshal has given us a temporary permit to open the parking lot. We were just waiting for the final documents to come in for the permit. And we're going to be opening the parking lot until we get everything shored up, because we are outside of snow season at this point.
Follow up, please. Again, it's probably a simple answer, but the question is begged. If we could now get a special permit from the fire department to use it, why didn't they give us that back in December so we could have opened the
They
ice
did
rink?
give us a permit last year for opening that area, but unfortunately, we only get a certain amount of days for that, and that it had expired. So we couldn't open, you get 180 days, and the 180 days expired. And that's what happened.
And then when did the new 180 days start?
It would have to be after outside of snow season. So that's why we're in a new year, and the fire marshal, because we're moving forward with the permitting process and everything's going through, he was able to give us 180 days.
Thank you.
Commissioner Adams?
I just want to check my understanding of this based on the emails you've been sending out. The issue that our current holdup for the permanent structure is around having additional supports in place for if we get heavy snowfall.
Correct.
You guys have also done, I think, some not insignificant work around getting the footing certified as a permanent structure, and so.
Yes.
So I think, I imagine there's some part of that essentially everything other than the additional supports in case of heavy snow
Correct.
has been done.
Yeah, all of the
And I imagine that's the
calculations
difference
and-
between now and October.
Yes, correct.
You guys have done a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there's a difference between a parking structure in the summer and a snow-proof cover in the winter.
That's correct as well.
Thank you. Commissioner
So we
Weiner.
will, Parks and Rec will be spending around $13,000 for the cabling components to go onto the tent. And we have money budgeted, we have money to do that. So we're moving forward with that.
Yeah, thanks, and thanks for the update. I'm just sort of trying to think a little bit longer term. I know that the intention around keeping the structure up year-round is that it saves about 50 grand a year or so with the put up and take down and all of the things, and every 50 grand counts. I also have heard from a lot of citizens that they don't love the look, and I'll say I agree with them, and I had been informed previously that there was ongoing discussions with some folks that might be interested in designing a more permanent structure and a more attractive thing. Is that still happening? And is that, I mean, that's a longer term project.
So
Let's
that
get
is
this
a
done
really
soon.
good tee up to why Mark Knox is here from the Parks Foundation.
And that was not a setup.
A great segue.
So I can turn it over to Mark Knox if you don't have any other questions about the current structure. Okay,
Please, Mr. Knox.
take it away. I'll pass these out.
Is this on now?
Yeah.
Rachel's going to hand out a handout. I'm sorry for the audience. I didn't bring any, I guess I'm technically challenged sometimes. So the handout was just, I guess, for the commission and one for the staff. My name's Mark Knox, 670 Nepenthe Road. Just a little background. I'm a ex-city planner here in the city of Ashland. I know a number of you. I was a consultant, and I was also a part owner in KDA Homes before my retirement. I'm now on the Parks Foundation, a couple other foundations, and spending a lot of my time doing things like this. But, you know, as the agenda states, the Ashland Parks Foundation desire to begin a fundraising campaign for a new ice rink and its accompanying amenities. And yes, this is a 100% informational-only presentation, as the foundation will eventually be back to seek formal approval from the Ashland Parks and Recreation Commission. This project has kind of taken legs just through conversations, backdoor conversations. Just as this commissioner alluded to, there's talk about disappointment in the community about what occurred with the rink and its appearance, I guess. I was quite surprised, as somebody who does a lot of work or used to do a lot of work with the city, that all of a sudden became a permanent structure. It sure doesn't look permanent, and I personally think that we as a community can do better for our park. So, long story short is these conversations have turned into pledges. There's been some significant pledging that's occurring only through the foundation to design and construct a permanent structure and its accessory structures, and which would include not just the rink cover, but a ice skate rink rental shack, snack shack, bathrooms, a Zamboni garage, some seating areas, and likely significant infrastructure upgrades to the site. I say all this, sounds great. Well, we're taking baby steps still. This is our first, my first presentation, our first presentation publicly. After this, I'll begin some conversations with the neighbors, taking input from the neighbors, and working with architects, which we've already identified, a local architects and a local landscape design architect. So handouts tonight, as you can see, the first couple pages are just images of the existing rink. And then on page 6, you'll see the elevation of the little building, a little site plan there. This is actually from 2011. There was an application back in 2011 for the property to the, see, that would be to the north where that new nice house is. It was going to be a restaurant. And the then applicants were proposing to fund these buildings for the ice rink. Application was approved, just didn't turn out the way we wanted it. So that was just, it just kind of went dormant. This is a really helpful plan, if you will, in the sense that it gives folks like yourselves and me, when I start talking to the foundation board or other possible donors, that this is the kind of the concepts we're looking at. This wasn't, I don't think, really fleshed out, but it is a very good starting point. The idea is that on that south end where we have the chiller and some grass area right there, that's really the only spot on the site that we could place these buildings, but also look at areas like a plaza space, assembly space, where maybe we have some fire pit of some kind or some type of gathering space while families are enjoying the ice rink itself. I will say right now, that as I remember this, the idea is not to close down the parking with this idea. I think that that's a decision in the future that I don't want to muddy up with this particular proposal. Donors are finicky when they think that their monies could be wasted. So the idea would be that we would make every effort to go through a very thorough program of various uses, those accompanying buildings for those uses that would accommodate the parking, but that could adapt to a multi-purpose facility where parking could be either eliminated altogether or just just a mixed-use type of space. So as I turn the page here, I'm on page 7 here, initial vision. This is kind of funny. This is one of those things where it takes legs when you're having a conversation with a friend, and all of a sudden there's a half an hour later, there's a quick draft of what the structure itself could look like. And from there, on the page 8, you see what we call a pop-up architectural design where it's a barrel roof, very attractive. It can be low profile, where the neighbors in particular that behind will be very happy. It wouldn't be a white roof, it'd probably be more earth tone colors. The thing there is, you can see it is still rough, but we will want to pull elements in from Lithia Park, which right around those columns, maybe some wood cladding. I'm going to go right back real quick to one of those images say on page 2, where you see, you're looking up Windburn Way, and you see between the sidewalk and, say, those yellow bollards or the rink, there's a lot of mess there, if you will. There's an opportunity there. And that opportunity could be some seating along Windburn Way. It could need a short wall. That could be very nice, you know, that you see in Lithia Park now. Just a thought. But, you know, the idea is to really evaluate as best we can where we can accommodate seating, covered seating, and the other facilities that are necessary to have a functioning ice rink. Zamboni, the shavings themselves, how do we get the shavings off the site, all that kind of stuff. So on the next page, page 9, I met a few weeks ago with staff, Rachel, Bill, and Lonnie. Yep. And you know, the idea was to, okay, give us your wish list. And this is, I think, a relatively comprehensive list so far. The ice rink cover being the #1 priority, and I think that that's how we will do our fundraising is on everything, of course. But once we feel like we have enough for to kick off, I think the rink will, I mean, I know the rink will be will be the #1 priority, and then we'll go from there. The phasing plan itself will be based upon the finances that we have available. If we don't have enough, then there's certain elements on these lists that will just be pushed off until the future for future fundraising. But again, the idea is to do somewhat of a master plan. To make that plan adaptable so that these things can easily slot in with an inexpensive kind of route, and then just keep moving forward. So page 10 just lists the foundation, the commission, and then also a steering committee. We have a steering committee that's been is being set up. These folks have all agreed. One thing I will point out: there's no females on that one list on the right, and it's really because the female that we chose actually is probably going to be our landscape architect. So I just removed her from that list. But the intent of the steering committee is to make sure that there's enough dialogue that's going on that can push back on maybe some of the designs that the architects are proposing, or encourage, you know, other facets of the plan. One of those things, just again, being I know some of the original concept planning we're doing, we really haven't been thinking too much about protecting the assembly spaces for rain coverage. And so, you know, things like that, things just like that are also another eye to make sure that we're, you know, putting forth our best effort. Last page. This is a tentative. Again, as in red, it says dependent upon fundraising and public hearing process. Both of those in this community, we just don't know. But the idea is that after next season, we would have everything in line to start construction. If we don't, you know, as Rachel just pointed out, the existing facility can remain, and we will push everything off to for another year. But the idea would be to start moving forward, do the design work, go through the public hearing process, do all the communications that I believe are necessary, and start lining up the contractors and communications with the city staff, get the building permits, everything in line for that. Once the season ends in 2027, we would start the construction of at least the first phase and hopefully the whole enchilada. Any questions?
So I just want to reiterate the last part there. A year from today, basically, last week, we would have a new structure
That's the
started. In other words, we're going to finish, as I asked Rachel earlier, we're going to finish next season with the current structure. And you would have all of your ducks in a row so that you could start construction and be certain that you would have a structure there over a functioning ice rink in the fall.
Yeah, our goal would be that we obviously wouldn't start until we knew we had the money, the funds that matched the contract, the construction contract. Yes, this time next year, the existing structure would come down and trucks would be rolling in to put up the new structure and probably various changes to the site.
So there would be no use of the site, obviously, until October of '27 while you're
That's
doing
correct.
the construction,
That's
no
correct.
parking, that sort of thing. And then Plan B would be, we don't throw away the current structure in case
Right.
something goes wrong?
Right? We don't
Okay.
have the funds, then it's good for another year.
Thank you. Commissioner Weiner.
Chair. Well, that was a far more complete answer than I anticipated when I asked the question. So, and really exciting, and the kind of value add to the community that I'm just so excited to hear is actually. So thank you for the work on it. There was a lot of mention of if the funding, but never the funding was mentioned. So, what kind of a budget do you think you're going to need for this? And
Well, it's in the early millions.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. In my fundraising years, is that as you announce that for fundraising, prices tend to go up. Prices tend to be right at that fundraising amount. So I'm a little hesitant of that, but it'll be a few $1,000,000. How about that?
thanks, appreciate it.
And I want to be sure that everybody understands there's no public money
That's correct. And
associated with the actual construction and the the city acquiring a capital asset
that's correct.
without spending any money.
100%. I think the only thing we'll probably ask the city to do is take down the existing structure. When we come back, we're going to come back with relatively complete plans, not construction drawings, to the commission to approve those plans. You're going to be the ultimate authority on that. It goes through the planning process. Of course, there could be changes there. At that same time, we will want to have some type of an agreement that commits the Parks Commission to allow the foundation to move forward with contracts. Because once we do that, we're going to be committed to various contractors and finishing off the construction drawings and paying various fees and so forth. So at some point, there's going to be a lot more dialogue on the plan itself and on the process.
And this mirrors what we're doing with the fountain.
That's correct.
And I presume you've had conversations with our legal team about that,
About the fountain, for sure.
the fountain and the possibility of this
Yeah,
shaping up.
plenty
Okay.
on the fountain. Not so much about this so
Okay,
far.
but they're aware of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good example of where like commission and city needs to work together for. And I mean, that's kind of honest listening. I think it sounds great. And that's just kind of the one thing that I want to think about going forward.
Thank you. Somebody else want to have a question or a comment? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Knox, and we look forward to the plans.
Okay, me too.
Which brings us to our fifth business item, the Hunter Park Tennis Court project update. We have 7 people who want to speak to this. We're going to hear from staff first what the status of the project is, and then I'll call up people to speak to the item. I'm going to limit it to 2 minutes tonight because there are 7 people. So try to look at your notes and make sure you can be done in 2 minutes, please. Those people are going to speak, and then the commission will ask questions of staff. That way, if our presenters don't want to hang around for the whole conversation, they can leave. Okay, let's go.
Well, good evening again. So I wanted to give an update on the Hunter Park Tennis Court and kind of where we left off, and give some input and potential paths forward. Currently, this is the current layout of the Hunter Park Tennis Courts. The current project plans, basically, we submitted a grant to the state of Oregon. We were approved for a grant, and activities include all tennis, all 8 courts tennis with 1 multi-use court for bike polo and futsal. With our grant request and with all the public input that we received, there was no plans for pickleball at that time. The surfacing will be full asphalt and concrete resurfacing. Utilities will install a new water line and drinking fountains. We'll be doing perimeter fencing and interior fencing, as well as new siding and paint on the hitting wall in between the tennis courts. The estimated timeline right now for bid solicitation is May and June of this year, with the construction hopefully between August and October and November. The deadline to utilize the grant funds without an extension is December 31st of this year. I did reach out to OPRD. The reason that we're talking about this tonight is I did reach out to the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department, and they did say that we did have a significant amount of public comment when we first submitted the grant, including for tennis and for pickleball community. And because of that, the state parks would require an amendment to the grant, which is fairly easy, with documented public comment, which is why we're doing this tonight, why we're discussing it. But there is a window of opportunity if we want to consider adding pickleball lines to at least one of the tennis courts. So that's kind of why we're here tonight.
Can I just stop you 1 second?
Yeah.
Commissioner Long had a question, I think, about the first slide.
Sure.
Thank you. Yes. No, actually, the second slide. It talks about surfacing, asphalt and concrete resurfacing. My understanding was that actually that wasn't going to be sufficient, that there was going to be a need to actually, that the base needed to be removed or something to make it so there wouldn't be the continuing settlement. But it's not listed there. Is that assumed?
That's part of it. Yeah, it's assumed it's part of it.
Thank you.
Let's see. So just to give you a little bit of background, I did include this in the commission report as well. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of background. So we did do some surveys during the pros plan process, even though we haven't finalized the pros plan. It's just some input and information that's interesting as part of this discussion. So as part of the first survey that we did, did you participate in any of the following outdoor sporting activities in Ashland? And so 104 people responded that they play tennis, and 205 people responded that they play pickleball, both outdoors. Another one of the surveys, do you agree with the following? Ashland needs more pickleball courts. 32% agree, 39% disagree. Ashland needs more tennis courts, 17% agree, 45% disagree, which is a higher priority. And the top green is tennis and the bottom blue is pickleball. So more people think that pickleball is a higher priority. Some just general pickleball and tennis data. National participation in tennis hit a record of 27.3 million in 2025, and it does remain a high-value activity for Ashland residents. Pickleball is a mainstream sport with 22.7 million active players. Demographic has shifted towards younger, with average age around 34 to 35 years of age. And, projects are moving away from single sport facilities in favor of like multi-sport facilities to maximize return on investment, that sort of thing. The project funding and estimated budget, 60% of the funds are from the grant, so $720,000 are up to $720 can be used for the grant, and 40% is from the park CIP budget, so up to $480,000. So the engineer's estimate, which was done at least a year ago, was $971,000. And again, the grant deadline is December 31st. So the proposed project amendments, so adding additional discussion tonight could include adding additional striping to court number 5 to accommodate 4 pickleball courts. Every tennis court could have up to 4 pickleball courts. Also, discussion tonight could include universal net versatility, so upgrading all courts or some courts to include removable tennis nets. This allows for the entire facility to be cleared for major special events, tournaments, or alternative recreational uses. And these are the discussion questions this evening. Are you interested in integrating pickleball courts at Hunter Park? Is the Parks Commission interested in increasing user flexibility on all or some of the courts? I will say that I have spoken with, I did reach out to the high school tennis coach to see kind of when they host tournaments, because Hunter Park is the high school uses it for their practices and their tournaments. And I asked about lining, multiple lines, and he did say that they can host tournaments even if there's multiple lines on the courts. The less than ideal situation would be if we started trying to put permanent pickleball like posts in. That could prohibit or hinder tennis play with the balls hitting the certain areas where there's maybe some raised portions. And then that's all I have right now. And then tonight, again, it's just discussion, and I would recommend that if we want to move forward with changing something, that we bring it back in April for more discussion.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to call up our citizens who want to speak to this, and then we'll proceed with the discussion. So I have in order 7 people, I think I counted right, and so if we can, 2 minutes, and our timer will be our acting director and timer, Rachel Dials. So I'm going to call like 3 at a time so we don't have a line standing there the whole time. The first 3 are Rick Van, David Owen, and Jane Ferguson. And if you could just repeat your name, please, for the record, and the city of residence.
Sure. Thank you. By the way, was that 20 minutes or 2 minutes?
2 minutes.
Oh, 2 minutes. Okay, I'll make it quick. I'm Rick Van. I'm a resident of Ashland, and I am also pleased to be part of the Recreation Division Advisory Committee. And I plan on being involved in all sports, but I am here tonight to talk a little bit about pickleball, which I consider to be an extreme value-added part of the community, much bigger than a lot of people realize. Rachel's numbers were great about the data. In addition, there are over 70,000 courts as of 2025 in this country. Ashland's problem is not unique. Demand has truly far outstripped supply as the sport has grown exponentially in the last 3-4 years, and I think you all know that. We have only 8 outdoor public courts currently, which is not a problem in March, but it becomes a huge problem in May, when all of the visitors from out of state and locals descend as well. So many folks from out of town bring their pickleball paddles as well as their OSF tickets to town. So it's a huge amenity and a growing one as well. But we are out of capacity right now. We truly need, at a bare minimum, the restriping, wonderful idea, but it would be great to get more dedicated courts. Pickleball players also want to be good neighbors. We realize there are noise elements involved. Daylight hours are great, for play, and we would honor the restrictions on the hours. Also, Rachel had mentioned the high school tennis coach. We are also helping coach kindergartners, elementary school teachers, high school students. The demand is growing at the school level as well. A first grader this morning at Hellman Elementary was very proud to tell me that her sister had just taught her how to play pickleball. Very heartwarming. So, and pickleball is also a great entry sport. It's easy to learn, cuts across gender lines, income lines, age lines. I know it looks like a lot of gray hairs out there, but there are folks of all generations. So thank you in advance. I know I'm out of time. Thanks in advance for making change happen, and anything you can do will be huge for the community and for the pickleball community as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dave Owen. I live in Ashland. I really think it's very important to get the universal net versatility because once you tie a court into one sport, you have a very limited number of people. Even if they're pickleball, they're very limited compared to all the sports. So I think it's very important. The expanded access for the additional striping, I really think one court 5 is just not enough. There are many times, even at this time of year, when you arrive at the Lithia court and have to wait. And this is the off season, and you have to wait. There's waiting lines. We don't have enough courts, and we should have at least 2, preferably 4, multi-striped over there. And it's an irritation for everyone. I'm sure it is for tennis players like it is pickleball players to have multiple stripes and have to get your mind trained to which color you're looking at. But there's an awful lot of people that want to play pickleball. And as Rick said, in the summertime, it's really bad. We've had 25, 30 people waiting, and we're trying to get people into our town. Let's face it, it's a nice thing. And they're waiting, they can't play. And we're among them. When we arrive at that time, there's just too many people. And we really need some more pickleball courts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jane Ferguson, I'm short. And I'm here to represent the Hunter Park Tennis Association. We have just about 100 members. And if I remember correctly, one of the last meetings, it was determined that geographically and according to our numbers in Ashland, that we have enough pickleball courts and enough tennis courts. I'm pretty sure that was what was said. And so pickleballers have 8 pickleball courts. We have kind of 7.5 tennis courts. And I'm concerned about especially, okay, I think the multi-purpose court, we could maybe line that for both sports, but I think to line all our Hunter Park tennis courts would be tragic. As we know, and Dan Weiner already said, carving up Hunter Park tennis courts with pickleball events would impact the availability for tennis players. And I'm really concerned about the universal nets. So let's say pickleballers come to Hunter Park, can they just change the net and then make it theirs? I'm very skeptical about it. And I would like us to try to protect the tennis courts for tennis. And I mean, historically, when tennis players and pickleball players competed for the same space, it created conflict. And we don't need more conflict in this world, and especially around a sport and something we want to do to enjoy our life and preserve our health and enjoy our friends. So I beg you to really consider the impact that adding the pickleball or even the universal nets would have on our tennis courts. Thank you. Perfect time.
Thank you. You must have been a debater in high school. The next 3 people are Pat Schroeder, Daryl Whitmore, and Dave Ferguson.
Hello, I'm Pat Schroeder, a resident of Ashland since about 2018. And one of the major reasons we came and purchased a very nice home here was because of that time, there was an active, and it still is, an active tennis community. To me, that's huge, because then you can always find a game, most of the time, except in August in the afternoon. Everybody's trying to stay cool. But my point is tennis is the game of life. People like us with gray hair, we've often been playing for over 50 years. And I met my husband on the tennis court, and we played together over 50 years. It's a life, it's a game of life. But also, the ESPN and the USTA say that tennis, yes, tennis is growing. It is not just kind of withering away, even though pickleball people might suggest that. The other thing is if there's double stripes at the courts, I believe that those courts will no longer be eligible for use in a USDA sanctioned tournament or in the high school tournaments. So I think it would actually ruin the tennis courts for real tennis. Certainly, as far as the need for pickleball, yes, there is a huge need for more pickleball. No question about that. But why ruin Hunter Park tennis? Why can't a rich, beautiful place like Ashland build more pickleball courts elsewhere instead of ruining what we have now? So that's pretty much my point. Build them somewhere else, and we'll all be able to get along without conflict. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Darrell Whitmore. I'm a resident of Jacksonville. I represent Rogue Valley Bike Polo, which most of our participants, or at least our weekly participants, are local. We play 1 or 2 nights on Court 5. We really appreciate the generosity in the past of the multi-use court, the cooperation we've had with your staff. It's been a really wonderful experience. We're hosting our 7th tournament this year. We bring in players from all over the Pacific Northwest, sometimes reaching as far as LA and Salt Lake City. We even have people come from Costa Rica. We have a really wonderful group of people that just loves the experience that we have at Hunter Park. So first of all, thank you for the generosity you had in the past. As far as the future, we're looking forward to the renovations to the court. We take the best possible care that we can for the courts, and in my opinion, we leave no divots, no damage, nothing that impedes on anybody else's play, and encourage the multi-use aspect of that court. We also have the opportunity to expand. We are not 2.7 million. We are this obscure sport that is so fun, and watch it sometime because you'll just laugh the whole time. It's really fun. But we can expand our sport. We have the interest to, if we could have 2 courts for a tournament, once, maybe even twice a year, we could host Northwest qualifiers, maybe even Worlds one day, because we do have an international following. That opportunity is there to bring in players, bring in guests, bring in participants from outside the community to support and shine light on what we have. So we encourage the multi-use aspect, and removable nets is great, especially on Court 8 as well, but not necessarily all of them. But I'm certainly in favor of creating opportunity for different sports. I'd like to have conversations about the interior fencing with staff, but basically, we're in support of creating opportunity and using that multi-use court.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Dave Ferguson, Ashland resident. About 10 years ago, my wife and I moved to Ashland, and we were so happy to see the assets in all of the parks and recs across the city, but particularly the tennis courts at Hunter Park. However, we've seen a decrease in tennis assets as we lost 4 courts from SOU, 2 courts from Lithia Park, 1 court partly to the bike polo, further the deterioration of the existing courts with cracks all over the place, which are not just aesthetic but also safety related. So we're just here as the Hunter Park Tennis Association to advocate for protecting our assets. Thanks.
Thank you. We have two more speakers, Denise Daler and Dale Rooklin.
Hi there. And you pronounced my name right. Thank you so much. I'm gonna offer some things that I actually haven't heard spoken about tonight that I think is valuable in considering Hunter Park as at least partial use for pickleball. One of the things is that Hunter Park serves a different community in Ashland, a different socioeconomic community, more families. It's very walkable for students, not only from SOU, but from the grade school and the middle school. And my family lives right over there. We use the park a lot. I go there a lot, and I see a lot of people attempting to play pickleball on tennis courts. And a lot of them are families with kids. So that's something that I think is really valuable to consider in where we look for opportunities to put more pickleball courts in this town. It also is a much better location for winter play because Lithia Park is not only really cold, but it gets icy because the creek is there. So in the winter, Lithia Park is not as usable for pickleball, which, you know, people were talking about summer use and it being very crowded. Well, it is a hindrance in the winter also for that and is dangerous. I've watched people slip and fall. So there's a lot more sun on this side of town, and it's definitely warmer in the winter, and I'm always looking for great opportunities to get outside myself and get my daughter outside. There are no pickleball courts that serve the south side of Ashland that are non-member courts. So south side of Ashland could use something to support pickleball play. And while tennis definitely has deep-rooted popularity as a sport, I played tennis a lot of my life, pickleball is definitely cited as one of the fastest growing sports in the United States with a low barrier to entry for people across all age groups. And you don't need a lot of skill to get started in pickleball. You need a lot more skill to play tennis very well. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dale Rooklin, and I'm here to support pickleball and tennis. I think they're very healthy sports, and we've had it's just surges at different times. There's more people playing tennis than maybe pickleball, and then vice versa. And I think that rather than compete groups to each other, I think trying to meet the needs of each group. And I think, as several people have mentioned tonight, we need more tennis, or we need better courts, and we need more pickleball. And so I encourage you to kind of look at solutions through that lens, and hopefully it can all work out. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we can continue then, and Acting Director Dials is going to stay in her seat for the rest of this. So questions, comments for the Acting Director? Commissioner Weiner.
Yeah, thanks. And I appreciate all the comments from the community. These are, I will say, a small number of the comments that I've heard over the previous years related to both pickleball and tennis needs, desires, and amenities within this community. I've put a lot of thought into some solutions to some of the problems that are facing our community in these particular sports, and I'd like to share some of those thoughts with you tonight, if that's okay, and prompt that discussion. So, thank you. What I will say is I don't think there's any question pickleball is a popular and growing sport. It's a social sport. People like to play together, and they play in an interactive fashion. We certainly have heard that there is a need for expandability for tournament play for pickleball. We've struggled to be able to deliver on tournament play. We've heard that the high schools are interested in introducing pickleball into their curriculums. Whether that'll happen or not, it's hard to know. We've also heard that they want expanded hours, and the hours at Hunter Park happen to be actually a little bit longer than the hours of play available at Lithia Park. And we can have a conversation about LED light impact on wildlife in a wildlife interface and wildlife habitat, such as Lithia Park. The lights have been down for the past winter season, and it's shown positive impact on wildlife habitat. Nonetheless, tennis is a long-standing, popular, highly desirable, active sport for a large number of individuals. There's a demand and a need in this community for ongoing tennis access. Tennis players have made it clear, and from the original conversations, I've reviewed all of the discussions from the original debate about where to put tennis and pickleball. Tennis players have made it clear they're distracted and impeded by the sound of, they don't want to hear pickleball. I mean, like, let's just say it like it is. They find that to be a nuisance, a noise nuisance, and they don't want to hear it as well. So that's a concern for tennis players. And they'd like to maintain as much access as they can. Tennis has lost significant access in this community. But there are other folks in this conversation that have never been mentioned. Those are other park users. Folks who don't play pickleball or tennis, who want to walk the nature trails in Lithia Park, who want to go to the brand new multi-million-dollar Japanese garden designated as a meditative experience, the reflective upper duck pond, which is supposed to be a quiet and peaceful experience. The folks who want to go use Madrone picnic area, who all they hear is pickleball and, by the way, have nowhere to park. So there's more than just tennis and pickleball creating conflict. That hasn't even mentioned the litany of concerns expressed from the adjacent neighboring homes, both on Granite Street, all the way up Strawberry, and on the other side of the road up to Ridge Line and along Glenview. So I think we actually, while these discussions have been around for a long time, Leslie Eldris as acting director or interim director, stated they were working on solutions to these problems years ago, but there were no easy solutions available. We actually have a solution available today, I think. And I think we're fortunate to have grant funding and reconstruction at the Hunter Park facilities happening in the very near future. In short, and I'm happy to go more in depth into a lot of the thoughts over it, but in short, my proposal would be, it would be multi-striping, not necessarily multi-striping, but set up for variable multiple court structure at Hunter Park. I would keep, if it were me, if I was king of the forest, I'm not, just one voice, I would have two of the when I'm talking about it in tennis courts, so each tennis court focus switches to 4 pickleballs. So right now there are 8 pickleball courts, which consumes 2 tennis courts in Lithia Park, which I think, and many have stated, is an inappropriate location for that particular sport. If we converted 2 of the tennis courts in Lithia Park from tennis to pickle, that would give you 8 solid dedicated. If we double striped an additional court, Hunter Park, excuse me. Hunter, thank you. Double stripe one of the tennis courts at Hunter Park for tennis and pickleball, have rules around when and how sharing and use would be facilitated. That would add an additional 4 courts, giving a total of 12 pickleball courts available. We'd maintain the multi-use for bike polo and other as well, so that would be whatever court that is. That would leave, I believe, if I can count, I believe that would leave us 4 dedicated tennis courts, single striped for tennis, although interesting discussion about potentially having the fitments to have easy net removal and switch out for expandability to offer pickleball competition as long as they would not impede safety or play for tennis. And I think there are fitments that would do that. That would affect, and then we would, and of critical importance is you'd convert the pickleball courts in Lithia Park back to their historic nature as tennis courts. You'd leave the lights off for wildlife habitat. You'd reduce the parking problem in Lithia Park. You'd reduce the noise nuisance in Lithia Park. And you'd maintain a quiet play area for tennis players in Lithia Park who couldn't play near the pickleball players. I am happy to share more, but that's the gist of my proposal.
Well, thank you. That's a very comprehensive idea, and will take a while to digest that, but I appreciate you going all the way through that so that we have something to chew on for a while. Does anybody else have any comments or questions for the acting director, Commissioner Gardner, and then Commissioner Adams?
Yeah, I have two questions. And we briefly discussed this in another meeting, but I just want to know, be clear. So if we attempted to make, say, two of the courts at Hunter Park multi-use, we have to rewrite the grant?
No, we just need to amend the grant. And it would just require, basically, it would require documenting something to the state that, where we've had public meetings, which we're having tonight. And like, we've had a public process, and we made these decisions based on our public process.
Okay.
So it would just require amendment.
So it's doable within the time frame?
Doable within the time frame.
Okay.
Yes.
And the second question I have is, so I've heard a couple times, so if, say we converted court 5 and 6 to potentially use pickleball, and we installed post holes that were capped, does that make those courts unusable for any kind of sanctioned use?
It's
tennis use?
My understanding is that it's going to be difficult for tennis players because of the ball, where the balls hit. So,
I mean, it would be flush with the ground.
but there's still going to be something covering.
Yeah.
And so that could impede, my
So
understanding
we
is
don't
that
know
could
for sure,
impede-
but
we
we're
don't-
just assuming that would
Correct.
render
Yeah.
those courts unusable for tennis tournament play.
Correct. What I will say, though, is, again, I did speak with the high school tennis coach, and my understanding and his understanding is that it would not impede tennis tournament play from happening if they were striped for pickleball and tennis.
Right, so if there was no post holes, but they were just double striped.
Correct.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Adams?
I have a brief comment and then a question. So I'm not a tennis player. I haven't played since I was 9 or 10 years old. I do play pickleball on occasion, poorly. I don't doubt that anybody in the audience tonight could whoop me in the kitchen and out of the kitchen, including the bike polo players. And so I had to ask people that know. And so I spoke to last year's tennis coach and asked him a little bit like, hey, what's the deal with double striping? Is it a problem? You know, it seems like a lot of people are passionate about it. And so I wanted to share the couple of things that he shared with me as somebody who doesn't know about tennis. And you know, one of the things I found impressive is just how, especially at the competitive level, how fast the game of tennis is. It was something that I didn't appreciate. He said even at the high school level, serves are routinely coming off those rackets at over 100 miles an hour. And so little things really matter. And additional stripes on the ground to try to judge where that 110-mile-an-hour ball is going and where it landed. And even the sounds of a ball coming off the racket are actually really important to competitive play. And so I do worry a little bit about double striping, even double use of the area. And I think it is important. Tennis is a varsity sport at our high school. It's actually, Ashland High School used to be competitive at a lot of sports. We're not as competitive as we used to be, but tennis is actually one of them. Despite, as people pointed out, the current condition of the courts that our kids practice on. And so I do have an eye to that. I do have a concern for that. I appreciate the people in the audience who sort of advocate for both sports and thinking about, hey, what are opportunities to have dedicated courts for users of both types. I still think a little bit about those poor derelict courts over by SOU that are currently getting used for nada right now, and of course would take not an insignificant amount of money to rehab as we see the budget for this project. So I guess those are some of my considerations as a non-tennis player, trying to watch out for the tennis players in our community. My question in regards to this conversation is, our goal was to start this project last summer, and we missed our window. I look at the proposed timeline in our current schedule, and it's tight. And given the condition of our courts and the need for our high school teams to be able to practice on there, I'd hate to miss another window.
Yeah,
What are your
I would
comments
say
about
that
our
even,
current window?
I don't disagree with you. I think the timeline is tight, but I think even if we waited and started in September, we're kind of if something gets held up with a bid or something, I think even starting in September would be fine. We've just got to get it done this fall. But we promised the high school tennis team, Hunter Park is their home field, so to speak, and we promised them that we would not interrupt their tennis season. And that's why when when Kevin stood in front of the public meeting and told, there was 30 kids out there saying, we need a place to play. And so, we decided to hold off a year for that reason. And I will say also that I did hear the other day that there's over 30 kids between the women's and men's tennis teams at the high school this year. So they've got a big team, so.
Thank you, and I do think that was the right choice for the record this last year to postpone. Follow-up question, sorry, Chair, thank you. What was I going to say? I had it and I lost it. Sorry, I lost it.
Commissioner Long?
I almost lost it too, waiting. I wanted to just start by saying, I really appreciated the public comments we had tonight. They really were thoughtful and respectful and open-minded. And I really tried to listen and closely, and I feel like that was, we got kind of a cross-section of representation tonight, and I appreciate that. I wanted to ask about history, as we had multi-use courts at Lithia Park. And at that point, I don't remember exactly, did the tennis nets have to be removed for pickleball to play?
I actually, no, tennis nets do not have to be removed for pickleball play. So there was a time back in 2020 and 2021 where where the courts were shared. It was like a year, and it did not go well. And I will just say that from someone who helps run a front office. We received constant complaints from the public on both sides, from tennis and pickleball. So sharing all those courts, difficult at best, back in 2021 when we did try sharing for a year. And that's why the commission at that time in 2022-ish, I think, or 2023, made the decision to separate and do tennis at Hunter, pickleball in Lithia.
And a follow-up. The reasons for, I mean, there's all kinds of reasons that there could have been conflicts. So I'm curious if you can parse that out a bit. Was it more because the pickleball people weren't leaving things ready for the tennis people, or tennis weren't leaving it ready for the pickleball? So was it the actual physical logistics, or was it more social?
It was, I feel like it was more the physical logistics. And I think at that time, I can't remember exactly how the rec division was operating the courts, but I feel like it had something to do with the first come, first serve. You know, I think there were certain days that pickleball could have it, certain days that tennis, or somebody would stay on the court too long. And there was just constant like complaining about people staying too long. Not observing the rules, those sorts of things. So,
It wasn't so much the actual physical pieces that weren't, that it was more, it was really what I would call social. It was more how people were moving through the system, but the actual, so it wasn't because of the, at that point, there were nets that were there, tennis nets were there all the time, correct?
yes.
Okay. And then the pickleball people had to bring their.
I think they had temporary.
They brought their temporary out. Okay, thank you. I just wanted
Yeah.
to get clear on that.
Commissioner Adams.
My brain gap filled itself in. I actually looked up the OSAA rules as far as tournaments go on multi-striping and the USAT South rules. And OSAA, which is probably most applicable, does allow smaller tournament play. So any local matches would be able to be held on multi-striped courts, but the higher level, the state tournaments and qualifiers, which we don't generally host, but those are not allowed. So, and USAT similarly doesn't allow larger tournaments to be played on multi-striped courts. So it does at least give some sense that the tennis governing bodies see a difference between those sorts of courts. But I do agree with the tennis player, tennis coach, based on what I read last night, that it's allowed.
Mr. Lunt.
Well, maybe we're winding down here. I see Commissioner Gardner also has a comment, but as we wind down, I want to go back to what we started with, which is the question is this worth more consideration? And I believe it is, but I don't think it should just come up at the meeting. I think it should come up at a study session. So next month's study session. And then if we choose, we can proceed to have it on the regular meeting for a vote. But I think it's a complex enough issue that it's worth really making sure we air it fully for the public. I mean, I know a lot of these things we heard earlier tonight about herbicides, how that wasn't there wasn't enough public. And actually, you folks know that we did do. We've had study sessions and meetings before we made decisions, but even with that, so I think it's the minimum for us to have a study session and then have then decide whether we have a vote at the next meeting or not.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that fits. As I recall, I get the title right. Is it Manager Caldwell, right? Parks Manager. He wants to get out to bid by May 1st, right?
Yeah, sometime in May. I mean, the sooner the better.
Okay,
And
so
that's why I think we would need to make a decision by April 8th. So
that would be
the-
ideal. So that fits what Commissioner Law's saying, and that's kind of what I saw coming. We need another full study session conversation. First of all, maybe Commissioner Weiner, we can get his proposal down in writing and get that out to everybody so they can think about phases that can happen here, because I think he's got some good ideas and we need to give him great, full consideration. So bring it back for study session, potential action at the business meeting, and we'll sure shoot for that, because we don't want to hold up construction, because we're, I have about 8 layers of questions now that I've listened to this conversation regarding what level of tennis can happen on striped courts. It's very important to get that fully understood. You can practice, certainly. You could have normal games at a high school level, I would guess, based on what I'm hearing. Other tournaments, like our community tournaments, they can deal with double striping. And I'm a multi-use person. I have a finance background, and I like to see these assets set up to be used as many ways as possible. So there's tension there between the higher level play and serving the overall needs of the community, which are to use these financial assets, which are in shorter and shorter supply, as efficiently as possible. So weighing those things, I'm still working my way through. Commissioner Weiner and then Commissioner Long.
I just had a quick question about, have we had any attempts at partnering with the tennis club in town for utilizing their courts for tournaments or for high school play even?
We, well, I haven't reached out to them about high school play. But as far as we have, Ashland Tennis and Fitness Club is an active partner of Parks and Recreation. As far as like utilizing their courts for public use, I mean, people have to pay to play there. There isn't an opportunity to.
Sure, but I'm thinking specifically if we were hosting tournaments, or if the high school was hosting tournament, we're all in together, and they're currently building more courts at that club, and so just thinking about the cumulative tennis court opportunity available.
Yeah, they're building 4
within the
more, I
community.
believe. So.
I'd like to yield to Commissioner Gardner, and then also, if I could.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Lott. So I just want to say 2 things. I appreciate everything Commissioner Weiner has brought to the table, but I have to say that you're kind of an army of one to change everything that we currently have in place, to reorganize it. And I personally am not a big fan of that, because I think it'll be costly and somewhat disruptive to the potential upgrade that we need to do. The other thing I would just say is, if we narrow down our decision to just if we want to try to multi-use a couple courts at Hunter Park, I don't see how that's going to slow down or have any effect on the upgrade that we need to do. I mean, it's really more striping in a small amount of work to make them multi-use courts. And I think it can easily fit in, with what park operations needs to do to get this project done in the time frame.
Okay, thank you. My comment about liking the longer-term vision of what Commissioner Weiner is proposing. It's really it's phasing out past what we're talking about. It's a more comprehensive idea, so we can kind of just fit what we're doing into that. But I agree. We do not want to put at risk this grant, and so it's not doing everything he briefly told us about. It's thinking about the next step. What I'm hearing is that we probably need more courts in general, and where they go is still yet to be determined. It could be lots of places that we don't have courts, the golf course area, whatever. And so there's a longer-term strategic racket sports issue here that I think he's starting to address. That's all I said. But we do have to be sure that the immediate need of spending this money properly happens, and I think that's what you were getting at, not to complicate the current decision. I just want everybody to understand that this is the first step, I think, in a multi-phased rationalizing where we're going to have racket sports in the town. And just something to think about as we go along. Commissioner Long.
I think that this decision will probably, whatever we decide, will be kind of set where we are for a number of years. That's the reality of it. I agree that we need to do something. We need to do something soon. We got to keep this thing moving. That's for sure. But at the same time, I'd like to see us do this in a rational way also. And for me, a rational way means I'd like staff to bring some options forward, and I want to have pros and cons. And one of the cons for Commissioner Weiners, which certainly should be included, would be it's going to elongate the process and perhaps mean we can't get this grant and be a part of this grant. I mean, I don't know, but those are the kind of pros and cons. Timing, cost, how it fits with what we found from our public input and from our survey information we have. And we should have, I think, 2 to 4 options for our study sessions. We don't come into study session cold and have to kind of figure it out as much as having staff do the legwork and have some options for us, including with, I assume Commissioner Weiner can help by getting something in writing to the staff. But that would, but that's what I would see is allowing us to make a clear decision for next month.
Right, and so not bringing it back to the business meeting, but to the study session. So that answers your next steps.
So that means we have to have it in 2 weeks. So that's a short turnaround. I do have concerns about getting costs on things. We can come up with some options. If you're asking staff what their recommendation would be, I would say that I would recommend that we stripe 1 court at Hunter. That would be my recommendation, and then be versatile with the netting situation for all of the tennis courts, or at least 4 of the tennis courts. That way into the future, we can stripe. It's easy to stripe more tennis courts down the road, but we should stripe at least one tennis court for pickleball. So, and that would be 4 pickleball courts. But that's going to be one of the options that staff is going to recommend.
I just have to call out what I think is a faulty impression of cost structure. So, previous director, I don't know where he was getting his money, but he felt that the predominant cost and design and delay time is all of the infrastructure building on the courts out at Hunter Park. The painting and the striping and the lining is cheap, quick, easy. That's what he said. I mean, every time I talked to him about restructuring that. So, but I think that not having a comprehensive plan that doesn't mitigate the noise, parking, and adverse impact on, put in a multi-million-dollar Japanese garden and stick 8 pickleball courts right next to it is at best laughable. We have an opportunity to repair that harm, that mistake made. For us to miss this opportunity would be even worse.
Thank you, Commissioner
Lund. Maybe I was misunderstood. I think that some cost information can be provided, low cost, medium cost, high cost. That's kind of, that can be done in a couple weeks. And yes, we're asking you to do some extra work, but this is a high priority for a large number of citizens, and actually very concerned and motivated citizens, and I think we need to really respect that and try to do the best job we can. And given understanding that we need to do it within a short period of time, because we have been we've obtained a grant that's really a gift, and we don't want to lose that. That's critical, we don't lose that grant.
Okay, I think we need to have a conversation at the next study session, and we can get together and talk about these options that we do want to have a well-defined set of options, including your recommendation, but we need to kind of spend a little more energy on this one here in public before we vote. And so we need to have a conversation at the study session on the 1st, and then we'll set up a vote for the 8th so that we can get a bid out. Okay? That's all we're going to talk about that tonight. There's a lot. This is a big decision, and we need to give it its due. Director's report.
You should clear the room really quick.
Yeah. Short break. We're not in recess, just a Hey, copy of the proposal for the
Thank you. Oh, great. Thanks so much. Fabulous. Great service. They're still working.
I knew they'd want it because they can take pictures of that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. That's cool, huh?
Okay. Director's report.
Director's report.
I
Here
have
we
four
go.
things. So just as a note on schedule change, we're now in daylight savings time. So park staff has shifted their hours for time change for spring. We have staff on the clock now until 9 p.m., 7 days a week. Bathrooms are closing later in the evenings in all the parks. General park staff work 6:30 to 4, and then our facilities coverage is from 6:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. So
Okay.
that's the first thing. We have an RFP, a request for proposal out for golf concessionaire for food and beverage service at the golf course. Deadline for submittals is March 26th, and it's just an opportunity for us to see what's out there and see if we can get some food and beverage service at the golf course.
And they would use our existing facility.
They
We're
would
not-
be using their facility
Not talking
for
food
that.
trucks, which would be fine, but
For the Kaye Guanajuato, the Lithia Artisans Market begins this weekend, so we will be keeping a close eye on that. And any restaurants who have requested seating on the Kaye are starting to put out their tables and chairs, and that's started on the 9th of March. And finally, we have two positions, Park Tech 1 position that was vacated by an employee who moved away. So we have refilled, that position is in the process of being refilled. The person is in background check right now. We have a rec coordinator position that is in background check now as well. So those two new employees will be coming on board probably sometime in April.
Great.
So
Great.
that is what I have.
Super. Any questions, comments? Okay. Thank you. Any items from staff or commissioners for the general comments? Okay. In that case, we are at Commissioner Gardner. I don't remember the
So I just, let's see, update on the Public Arts Commission. So the Ancestors Call, say there, I can't remember what the name of Micah Blacklight's project is. So it's ongoing. He's started the project. I think I might have mentioned that before, but
He's actually started the sculpture.
he's actually started the sculpture in the Langford Studios in Phoenix. So there'll be updates as he progresses on. It's as you recall, it's really a life-size. It's larger than life statuary that's scheduled to go into Ashland Creek Park. They're in the rain garden area. And the only other thing I would say is just from the Ashland Parks Foundation, we are right on the cusp of getting everything into the city for hopefully a notice to proceed within the next week or two, if everything comes together, for starting on the Butler Parazzi Fountain, which will be, of course, there'll be fencing and everything that goes in. That'll kind of trigger when the project's actually going to start. But we're, I think I mentioned before, we've already purchased the marble for the replicated fountain, and just kind of getting all the paperwork in order with the city, and we'll be ready to start that project.
That's good news. Thank you. Commissioner Weiner.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. I was just wondering about the concrete pathways that are leading sort of to and from the fountain pavilion are all marked up where some of the cracks, and is that part of the rebuild process, or is that a different capital improvement park?
About 30 feet on either side of the fountain is part of the project area, and those sidewalks will be replaced.
Right. Thanks.
Okay, item 10, which is upcoming meeting dates, Park Commission study session here on April 1st, Park Commission regular business meeting on the 8th, Ashland Senior Advisory Committee on the 13th. That I don't have a time. 3:30, thank you. That'll be at the Senior Center, and Recreation Division Advisory Committee on the 16th, and where's that?
The Grove at 3:30.
Grove at 3:30. Okay, thank you very much. We're done. Meeting adjourned.